As I said, I was down in New Orleans and was doing some TV, and Joe Sloan's name is starting to kind of pop up around the Tulane job. And I know Slade Nagel is now the interim coach, and it could be kind of a process for him, for kind of an interview on the job type deal. But some of the names were popping up around Tulane, and to hear Sloan's name, really surfacing around, LSU obviously has to play defense like they did earlier this week with Mike Denbrock. Denbrock was courted by Mike Elko in Texas A&M early on. LSU responds with a 3-year extension, terms undisclosed as far as the money goes, but they gave him more years on the contract at the very least. I would expect Joe Sloan to be waiting on a big payday from LSU as well, because they're going to have to play defense on Sloan as far as keeping him away from other suitors. His star has risen very fast here since he's been at LSU. He's always been a guy that has been very well respected, a guy that has done his homework, been very well prepared inside of the film room, but really kind of made his reputation as a guy that was a recruiter, someone that was really good at relationship building, really good from the staff standpoint of being able to recruit any position. Didn't matter. He didn't have to necessarily be, just penciled and pointed at guys that were offensive or quarterbacks. He could go get defensive linemen. He could go get, anybody that could help the team. He was a really good recruiter. Now, the 2 years since he's been in Baton Rouge, the production, the output, obviously with the offensive numbers is going to bring a lot of eyeballs to that side. But, when you've got a guy like Jaden Daniels who's going to pick up every quarterback award that means anything in college football, people are going to ask, hey, who's his position coach? And when they ask that question, they're asking with the intent of, we want to talk to him. We want to interview him. And it could be for offensive coordinator jobs. It could be for head coaching jobs at the level of a school like Tulane.
Because Tulane's proven that you can, the job can get you to, obviously you can make a leap from there. With what Willie Fritz did, he's able to land a job at a bigger conference at Houston and be able to make the leap from Tulane to back into like legitimate coaching circles where you talk about money and opportunity. And I mean, people don't know. I imagine they do, but the resources at Houston are the reason that he's leaving.
Yes,
like the opportunity is great. Obviously, you saw who was our guy, Tom Herman did there. Whatever he was able to get them relevant, and in a year with the playoff that he went from, where was he before?
Willie Fritz?
No. Tom Herman.
Tom Herman was
He was at Ohio State.
He was
an OC, yeah.
OC, then he goes to Houston, then he goes to Texas. So I'm saying you can see the lily pad effect that can have. And for Sloan, I'm seeing some stories about the Tulane, like who they're interviewing. They're looking at Air Force's Troy Calhoun and John.
Who feels like the leader.
Yes. And John Summerall has reportedly interviewed for the job. So there's two names that, but if you're really looking to make a splash, I could see why Sloan would. That made my ears perk up.
Yeah, I mean, and look,
Troy Calhoun doesn't.
I don't think Tulane's going to hire Joe Sloan.
Troy Calhoun,
right. I don't think so either.
Air Force is 12-1.
His name is surfacing. His name is popping up. His name is starting to begin. It's starting to get out there in jobs like this, because right now within coaching circles, people want the Tulane job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tulane is at this point a really solid job that you can go there and win and springboard in to a bigger opportunity. Willie Fritz has left the Tulane job in a lot better condition than he took it. And that ultimately is, that would be to me the definition of coaching success. Do you leave the place better than you found it? And what Willie Fritz leaves behind in New Orleans is in a lot better shape than what he took over 8 years ago. And I believe that, Tulane had a real opportunity to keep him, but you could hear Willie Fritz. He said in his opening press conference in Houston, it's good to be at a place where they tell you they're going to commit to facilities and they make it happen. I mean, that was a shot at Tulane, obviously, of them telling him on that they were going to commit to facilities, and they just never did. And, Willie Fritz looked at Houston, where his family lives. His wife loves the city. It was almost too easy. But the Tulane job within coaching circles is a job where people know, hey, you can go there, you can win, you can get attention, and you can springboard it into a bigger opportunity. I mean, the Houston job is almost kind of like, the Tulane job is almost kind of like the 2.0 version of the Houston job, to be quite honest. I mean, if you think about it, Houston, you don't have to leave the metro area to build your roster. In New Orleans, with some of the recruiting changes and the stipulations to requirements of admission into Tulane that Fritz and his staff was able to change while they were on campus, has allowed them to get and bring in, a different type of football player, which is, last 2 years that they're undefeated in the league, and they've competed for the conference. So it's a place that you can do, and you can recruit the state, be a contender, do it with, a lot of notoriety. Tulane's got really good social media. They build up. They got great, people follow them almost sometimes for their uniforms. I mean, I've heard more people tell me about Tulane's uniforms, and that's why they watch them than they watch for Michael Pratt. And I mean, it's a spot that I know a lot of coaches are paying attention to. And if you have an opportunity to get that job, bless you. People, you want it. I mean, Houston is almost kind of the bigger version to me of the Tulane job. Better facilities, the commitment to the facilities, but you don't have to leave the greater Houston area to build your roster. I mean, Tulane may have a need, a want for better football facilities, but it's serviceable and competitive enough where, you can win the American and compete for the American and do it with guys that are getting drafted. I mean,
and if you look at Tulane, it's been a whole dynamic of power shift where you lose your athletic director to Washington, have to bring in a new lose your head coach and the football team. So it's going to be kind of a rebuild in the sense of kind of what are we doing here? Like, do we want to dabble in this much success in football?
I would not take the rebuild approach at Tulane if I was the new AD there.
Well, that's why I think he's going after Air Force's coach.
You need to keep this train rolling, man.
Yeah, that's a New Orleans theme.
Don't let it get off the tracks, because you have.
It's so hard to get it back.
Absolutely, you lose that, and I mean, it'll take you a decade to find it again.
Yeah, because that's what even Troy Dannon said in his opening press conference at Washington. He was like, I came here because it's a place that you can win championships. At my previous stop, it's a place you couldn't. And, there's no real reason to say that, to take kind of like a shot on your way out. But, like you said, whenever it comes to a job like Tulane, this is a flash in the pan, or it can be sustained success. But this is definitely a crossroads in which you have to make the right hire. And if they want to go get Calhoun from Air Force, I think they were pegged to be in the college football playoff, and they reeled off 4 straight losses to end the year, and now they're playing James Madison in a bowl game. But still, that would be a good hire to go pluck him away from Air Force, because even in football terms, I think of Air Force before I think of Tulane in football, at least historically. But now Tulane is in that mix of they can win the American, they could go to be especially a 12-team playoff. You win your conference, you start looking at if you could bump up and get into a real conference. You start looking at those opportunities. Yeah,
and look, man, Houston has been viewed for a long time as a sleeping giant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, there has been runs
they got Dana Holgerson
that Houston has made at trying to jump conferences, and now they're in the Power 5. They're a part of the Big 12 starting next season. And I mean, for a long time, the Big 12 would roadblock letting them in, and it would be the biggest push from like Texas and Oklahoma, because they would be telling the other schools, like, if they get it right, if they hire the right guy and they have the resources of this conference behind them, heads up, like they could win this thing. And there was always like a blockade of keeping Houston out of the Big 12 because, like, internally people knew you don't want them in here because they could take it over if they figure it out. And, you know, I mean, they're slowly but surely. You got a booster like Tillman Fertitta, who's the Houston Rockets owner and has, you know, the deepest pockets and ready to spend. I mean, he's built Houston a basketball arena. He's built them a football He's built them a football facility. I mean, he's doing whatever it takes to make Houston a player in college football. And, you know, for a lot of people for a long time, that was kind of scary.
I mean, listen to the names that have been there and been head coaches and gotten pretty big time jobs afterward, and they're trying to join that party of our coach. Like, their track record of hiring has been phenomenal, and then you have people that they've made that next step. This is moved into a bigger conference where you want to retain these guys so they don't have to leave. But they've had Art Briles, Kevin Sumlin, Tom Herman, Major Applewhite, Dana Holgerson, and now Willie Fritz. So they've either taken massive swings or found talent early that was able to leave and procure it into bigger jobs. Like, so they're not afraid to spend or take shots.
They got money.
Yeah.
I mean, money is not the problem. They got oil money. They got, like I said, I mean, Tillman Fertitta, he owns everything in Houston. I mean, he owns like the soccer team. He owns the Rockets. He owns. I mean, he's pledging everything that that Houston needs to be a contender. And now with Fritz there, it'll be interesting to see how that's handled.